Today's Sunshine Note is titled Speaking Through the Clutter. Hear, O Israel, you are now about to cross the Jordan to go in and dispossess nations greater and stronger than you, with large cities that have walls up to the sky. Deuteronomy 9:1. When I finally stood up in the front of a small Nicaraguan congregation to speak, it was all I could do to keep from stumbling over my translator. I'd been sleeping on a lousy cot for weeks, and a rooster had wakened me up at 5 a.m. Then, to top it all off, I heard someone coming down the road screaming through a megaphone. It got louder and louder until I couldn't actually hear anything else except an increasing cacophony of jumbled Spanish words repeated over and over. Finally, I saw an old rusty minivan, covered bumper to bumper with stereo speakers. A guy stood in the van's open doorway, screaming into a microphone at the top of his lungs. It was the most amazing portable speaking platform I'd ever seen, even to this day. And the van just kept looping around the same 3 blocks again and again, and I could hardly get through one sermon story without having to pause again for 3 minutes as the blaring mobile stereo system slowly made its way through the street outside the church. It's likely that Moses would understand my frustration because his audience was much, much larger than mine, about 600,000 people. And even though he wasn't contending with a minivan full of speakers, he had to figure out how to give a speech to thousands of people with nothing more than his voice. The book of Deuteronomy, in fact, is a goodbye speech. It's the last chance that Moses had to speak to the people he led out of Egypt, those to whom he had literally given the last 40 years of his life. He wanted to remind them of their story, of all that God had done for them, and of the laws they had agreed to keep. It took him several days to give the whole speech. Have you ever wondered how all those people even heard him? Well, he had runners set up at intervals along sections of the audience. They would hear his words, shout them to their section, then run to the next guy, who would shout his section, then run to another, etc., all the way to the back of the crowd. Quite a process. God's laws were that important. Is God's law that important to us now? How much does it matter to you? Would you sit for days or run for miles to hear it? As we move into Deuteronomy, ask yourself what place you want the law of God to be in your life. May God bless you today.